Good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are on this blue marble. My name is Baba Kojo Wuso, bibliophile for life, and I'll talk about that later on. I'm here this afternoon interviewing one of my favorite people, educated par excellence, Baba Wekesa Madzimoyo from higher education out of Atlanta, Georgia. Before I bring the brother up to talk, let me talk about what I do and why I think this is important. My mission in life has been to make certain that quality Black literature is written, read, recited, remembered, honored, and preserved. I operate from the position that a book has no value without what? A reader.
True.
I also operate, I call my blog Digital Black Lit because some of us think that information, the age began with the internet. Okay, people wrote down stuff long time ago. They wrote down stories before there was printed books or computers. We were talking. Let me tell you a story is one of the oldest invitations in the human experience. The words, they're invitation to human relationship, human interactions, and help answer some basic questions. One, who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Who are you? And what will happen to us when we die? So Digital Black Lit is designed to engage readers, writers, and supporters of Black literature in dialogue about how technology is affecting the production, distribution, and consumption of our literature. Based on what's going on, it's imperative that the contributions and the benefits of literature by African people not be lost in this technological morass. The introduction of new communication platforms demands that we keep up with these changes and that are impacting the production, the dissemination, and access to our literature. Because we were legislated into illiteracy during the Ma'afa. But I'm here today to talk to and interview a man that I have the utmost respect for, considered a genius right along with Dr. Clark and Dr. Carruthers and Ivan Van Sertima and Asa Hilliard and all the great minds that I've ever talked to and been privileged to deal with. When I was about 40 years old, which was only yesterday, I remember talking to the creator saying, please put me around some conscious people. And I can say that I've been around some conscious people. And Brother Wekesa is one. He's going to be in Washington, D.C. on July the 29th and 30th doing some fantastic work. So now, Baba, tell us, who you are and why you coming to D.C. from Atlanta. Why would you leave the ATL to come to Disney East?
Well, thank you, Baba Kojo, for having me on tonight and to be able to talk with you. It's so wonderful. I'm always an admirer of the work that you have done, your work for years, your work with the Hurston-Wright Foundation, your work with people, helping people to write and get their books published now. It's really important work that you do because, as you said, stories make the world go round. They answer the basic questions for us. And one of the reasons that I'm coming is to tell a story. Right now, we are faced with an opportunity, an unparalleled opportunity to control a narrative of a person from our past and our culture, and to have that narrative that we control be the defining narrative nationally and internationally. Now, to do so, we're going to have to work at it. The person that I'm talking about, of course, is Harriet Tubman. We call her Araminta, which is the name that she was born with. And so many of us know that Araminta's image will be on one side of the $20 bill, along with Andrew Jackson. And whether or not you think that's a compliment or you think it's an insult, either way, we know that we're going to need to control her narrative, or else others will have Araminta, Harriet Tubman, representing something else, something other than what she is representing to us, and something then of us that in fact would then inspire the nation and the world, possibly. certainly we want to make sure that it inspires us, our people, our children. And to do so, we have to control that narrative. So what I'm coming for is on Friday night, the 29th, is all about story.
Excellent. So why should the great people in Banneker City, I'm going to stop calling this place by the first so-called president, call it Banneker City. Why should people from Banneker City want to come to hear you speak about Araminta on Friday night?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. First, we love Araminta, and just from the little that we know about her, we should come because there is much, much, much more. Like Araminta came from a family of 11. Come to hear about her mother, who was a revolutionary, her father, who taught her to read the stars. Come to meet her family. Come to meet the culture that helped to shape her. Come to learn the formula to produce Aramintas.
You mean Araminta had a mother and a father? She didn't just show up, appear up on the scene as a magical Negro? I thought that's what...
Hey, she didn't come from the planet Negroite, right? And just boom, out there, and then she's a superhuman black person and black woman. Certainly we're proud of her, and certainly she did extraordinary things. What you'll learn is that Araminta was an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. This is so important because often we think of extraordinary people who have superhuman powers, and it means that we can't get to them. But you're going to learn about her brothers, her family. You're going to learn about not her as a nurse during the Civil War, but as a doctor. Not as just a scout during the Civil War, but as a commander. It's a powerful story. Hers is a wonderful story. And we call it the Araminta warrior, healer, and builder story. And so that as we are learning more of her, we're learning the Araminta that was a warrior. So then that invokes the warrior in us. The Araminta that was the healer. The Araminta that knew how to build trust among her people, where there was induced distrust. Don't we need to do that? So we get to appreciate her as a warrior, as a builder, and also as a healer. She had to heal herself, just as she had to free herself before she could free anybody else. She had to heal herself, and you'll be amazed at what her wounds were, and even more amazed at how she healed herself.
My goodness! So she had a doctor's degree. I mean, was she a medical doctor? How did this woman back there in captivity learn to heal herself? That's an amazing feat.
Well, if you don't know her family, but if you know her grandmother and her mother, then you know the African ancestral healing knowledge, the herbal knowledge, and the healing knowledge was passed down and practiced. So it's not so amazing when you know the story.
She didn't work for Monsanto, did she? Never mind.
No, she didn't have a doctor's degree. She did have credibility, though.
Yeah.
See, what people don't get is credibility. It comes from producing results. And credibility doesn't come from being credentialed, okay, by someone whose process you don't respect. It means being credentialed, being certified, being given credit by those people whose process you respect. And so she had credibility. And you get to ask some of the folks during the Civil War that the doctors could not heal, that she was able to heal. Ask them whether or not she had credibility, whether or not she was a doctor or she was just doing what the doctor said. Really exciting.
It sounds like it to me. I think I'll be there. As an ambassador for Iowa education, I will definitely be there. And also as someone who's being trained to work as a facilitator for the Iowa education Warrior Healers and Builders workshops. Can you tell us briefly what Warrior Healers and Builders stands for, what it means?
I will do that. And Warriors, Healers, and Builders is Iowa Educational Institute's liberation technology. Okay? And that is, it's our formula, it's our path, and there have been many in the past. And what it essentially says is, in order for us to be successful as African people here, given that we have been and we continue to be oppressed, three things are necessary. We have to develop a warrior, healer, builder personality and mindset. We have to build a warrior, healer, builder skill set. Okay, it's not enough for me to think myself a warrior, but I don't know how to challenge the people and policies and practices that oppress upon my people. So I have to develop a mindset, a personality, and a skill set. Not just a personality as one of them. I'm a healer. No, no, no. I'm a warrior, healer, and a builder. And I go in and out of them as needed. Now, to be sure, at one point, I may be more skilled at one than the other. What's called on is that we never go to a zero baseline and never under that, but we continue to build a baseline where we are warriors, healers, and builders, skilled. And then at sometimes I may be more skilled as a healer than I am as a warrior, than a builder. But the times it is dictated by the need, not by some just internal, well, I just don't like to do that. I don't like to heal. I don't like to fight. I don't like to build. No, the needs of our community is what dictates, in our family, how much of either one I am at any given time. So it is warrior, challenging the people, policies, and practices that oppress our people. It is healer. In particular, we're talking about healing the psychic wounds, healing the poison, the injected poison that oppression has injected in our communicative bloodline. Just like the body has, the blood pumps all the way through, nothing can do, it carries oxygen. Our communication with each other, between each other, that's our body bloodline. And oppression has contaminated it, and we need to heal it as we communicate, as we talk, as we build. And so that's the healer part. And the builder part is simply, how do you build trust? Who taught me, you? Where did we get certified in the ability to build trust among Black people where distrust is induced? That wasn't covered in my undergraduate or master's curriculum, that, here's a skill set that's necessary in order to build trust among people when the system is continually trying to induce distrust. Skill set.
I know you use two terms, induced and injected, as opposed to, I was trained to think of it as oppression as internalized. Could you talk about that briefly? The difference between injected oppression and internalized oppression? Yes,
and this is something that we're going to get into on Saturday, because our mentor warrior healer builder stories on Friday, and on Saturday, particularly between 1 and 5, we have a taste of WHB. That's where we get into the skill set that I was talking about, and this is where we cover more deeply. In short, I, like you, was taught to say internalized oppression. That is, white people had oppression, they oppressed us, and as a result of long night of oppression, I internalized beliefs of my inferiority, my ugliness, my unworthiness, my lack of intelligence, blah, 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 blah. Actually, instead of I internalized it, the concept we use is it was injected in us. The metaphor is that if you knock me in my head and I'm unconscious, and while unconscious, you inject me with poison, whether it's actual poison or poisonous ideas. When I awake, I have to deal with the poison that's in there. I'm not responsible for putting it there.
Right.
You see, I'm not responsible for my abuse. We are not our worst enemy. I'm not my worst enemy. Yes, I got to clean it up. I got to figure out how to keep living with this poison, and how to get it out of me, and how to contain it while I try to get it out. At the same time, I didn't put it here. So the notion that we're inferior, that we're less than, that we have to prove that we are somebody, those notions that are notions of the oppressor have been injected in us, and we're not responsible.
What do you say to people who say, well, I'm not oppressed, I don't want to do it, I'm not oppressed, and that it's a negative thing to say that you're oppressed?
Well, what I say is keep on living. That's what my grandma used to say. But I would say something for her that just was like kind of obvious, right. And she knew I was in denial. She would say, well, son, you just keep on living. Okay. some people use it like says I'm not a victim.
Yes.
Well, we are victims of oppression. Now, that doesn't mean that I have a mentality where I've taken on a mentality that I am less than, and all I am is a victim. At the same time, to deny the reality of 16 bullets, okay, of hands up, don't shoot, okay, I can't breathe, okay, we can go down the line. Oh, I can't go and get Skittles. I can't ride the subway. You know, I can't get married. Now, you know, some of you know that I'm talking about Sean Bell, and I'm talking about Trayvon Martin, and I'm talking about what's the brother in California? I'm blocking on his name right now. But the point is that we are oppressed,
right,
and we are powerful. We are oppressed and we're smart. We are oppressed and we are deserving of better, and we will get better when we make that way for ourselves.
What's the difference between the presentation that you're going to do, and this is a rhetorical question because I know the answer, but I want you to share with us.
Okay.
I have gone to hundreds of lectures in the last 25, 30 years. Although I'm only 40 years old, I was premature.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've learned as a result of working with Aya, Warrior Healers and Builders, that information of itself it's important, but it's not enough. So
No.
what is the difference? What is the difference between what you're doing and what the traditional African-centered spokespeople, historians will do?
Well, yes, thank you for asking. Ours is a complement, because information about our past and culture is so critical. It's absolutely necessary. The work of scholars, Chancellor Williams, Baba Clark, modern scholars like Rutger and Akinyele Umoja, it's so important that we continue to mine and learn about our past and our culture, what we did and what we didn't do and how we did it. It's so important. Now, and while it's important, alone it is not sufficient. Because part of what has happened is we have been wounded, and the way we actually, based on those wounds, the way we even interpret our stories is from the outside in. Okay, the way we see it. For example, if we're going to do research and we say, okay, white folks had kings and queens, now let's look over here. Oh, see, we had kings and queens. Well, white folks had knights, and well, we had, you know, warriors. Well, the problem with that is this: that if I'm looking at my culture through my own eyes, I might discover that the king wasn't the most important. It may have been the council of elders that was most important. It may have been that the priesthood was more important. It may have been that the queen mother was more important. But I missed that because I am doing the research and telling my story from the outside in. And one of the things that we'll talk about on Saturday, 4 steps of how do you tell our stories from the inside out, as opposed to the outside in.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful. You know, as a bibliophile, collected all these books, more books than my family says I buy books if it's in money left, I pay for the mortgage and buy groceries.
Good idea.
And so I really appreciate your explanation. Tell us about the cost of these events over the weekend.
Excellent. Well, again, it's Friday. We call it a WHB, Warrior Healer Builder Super Weekend. So there is Friday night, and that's absolutely free. This is going to be at the Thurgood Marshall Center and downtown DC, and it's absolutely free. Come learn about this Sisters Warrior Healer Builder story and join us in this movement to control her narrative. Okay, now that's Friday.
Okay.
Saturday, there's going to be a session on African-centered education. This is an informational session on how, why, whether you're homeschooling your children or whether you're just riding them in the car and you're teaching them as you ride them, whether you work with them after school or the weekends, whether your children or your grandchildren, what is this African-centered education? Why is it so important? And how do you use it in order to help us be better students, be better people, learn and move forward? And so not only do you get the theory, but you get the examples of it and resources that you can connect and use. And there will be a special presentation during that time called Storytelling from the Inside Out for educators, for parents as educators and other educators. All right, and that's absolutely free as well. And then from 1 to 5, we have a taste of WHB. Now this is excerpted from our weekend retreat, which costs $499. This particular excerpt is only $45 per person for 4 hours. And again, this is not lecture. This is training. This is where you're exposed to the idea and then you get to try it on. This is skill building. Now I can watch you ride a bicycle all day, but I don't develop the skill of riding until you get off, I get on, and then you may support me in learning to ride. And that's what goes on. So that's why it's a 4-hour period. It's a workshop where we learn 3 skills and 4 steps, right? 3 skills and 4 steps, and it's practice. That's $45. And then we take a dinner break, and then at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 9, we have a special session for brothers and sisters. This is for us dealing with relationships, either relationships we want to be in, past relationships that we were in, relationships that we're currently in. So people who are single and people who are coupled are welcome. We talk about applying that same warrior, healer, builder technology to our relationships. Because as Barbara Clark said, if we don't strengthen those relationships, then the rest is lost. We can't build strong organizations when in fact the family is coming apart at the seams.
We have a pretty big audience, and you're also going to be doing this in Atlanta and in Chicago. Is that correct?
Yes. July 23rd weekend, we're in Atlanta, and in 29th, the following weekend, we're in Washington, D.C., and then the following weekend after that, we're in Chicago. And then after that, we're in Columbus, Ohio. This is a national movement to both tell the Araminta Warrior Healer Builder story and also to introduce this liberation technology, this Warrior Healer Builder technology to our community around the country. So I really encourage people to come out. Again, that last session on brothers and sisters, I didn't say the price, that's $25. And if you attended the $45 session, 1 to 5, then it's absolutely free. We really want to get it out to our people and make sure we begin to learn this and apply this technology, because our communication is toxic and has been compromised. We're going to have to heal that and how we relate to each other. And this gives some powerful skill sets, 3 skills, 4 steps to help heal the wounds of that communication.
And if you want more information, you can go to ayaed.com.
ayaed.com. Yes. Baba Kojo, as an expert, one of the things I'd like to ask you, and I know you're interviewing me, but this is to me a conversation. I have utmost respect for you as a bibliophile, as a person who's been about the business of literature and storytelling for most of your adult life. You've heard some of this Araminta Warrior Healer Builder story. What, in your opinion, is significant about it versus just another story?
Well, I think it helped me understand what you use the term universal orphan. That what impressed me was I never thought about Araminta or Benjamin Banneker or Paul Robeson, for that matter, their family and where they came from and who taught them. Who taught Araminta all the things that she knew? She didn't just one day wake up one morning and say, "Come on, y'all, we're going down in the woods." She had to know. She had to know something about biology. She had to know something about health. She had to know something about travel, and she couldn't read or write, not in the traditional form. So it gave me an idea that I need to look at these people as whole people. Benjamin Banneker, you know, could shoot the stars and do his astrology and help establish the boundaries of Washington, D.C. But I found that his father, who was from Mali, was a Dogon, and the Dogons saw Star Sirius 5,000 years before we had a thought of a telescope. So
right.
It helped me get rid of the universal orphan. You know, these people just show up one day and have these great revelations. And when these people show up this way and there's no connection to their family, there's no connection to their past, it says to me, it's impossible for me to do this. It tells my child that, well, that was Harry Tubman, or that was Martin Luther King. Okay, you know, you can't be a Martin Luther King, or you can't be a Harriet Tubman, or you can't be any of these great people, because they're only 1 in a million, and they're really not even black. You know,
right. They just came from the planet Kryptonite someplace, right?
Who
just happened to be.
Yeah, just happened to be. So that's one of the things that really impressed me. And the other thing was, when you, I don't want to give away all of the secrets, when you talk about asking you a question, why was it when Harriet Tubman is seen, I think of her as one of the things that she was given credit for was making certain that scared black men didn't run away. So she held a gun on black men. She had a gun in case that black people would try to run away. Which doesn't make what you call, I like what you say, doesn't make black sense. Because, you know, if people decided to join her and leave and go 500 miles to get away from there, they're not running away anyplace else. They're already running away. So that gun was for more than just black people. That gun was for white people, or anybody who would dare get in the way to attempt to stop them. So those are just two things that stick in my mind as significant. And it shows us that there are people, as you say, that she was an ordinary woman, but about 5'2", okay? And she did some miraculous things. She was more than a scout. She was a general. And here's something else. I didn't know that she died in what, 1913.
Yes, 1913.
1913.
93 years old.
I'm thinking, you know, that was a million years ago. She passed away in 1913.
She passed away the year, then passed the baton to Ida B. Wells Barnett.
Yes.
You know, I really appreciate that coming from you, who is a master of story and knows stories. And so we're really happy. I'm happy about coming and doing this presentation. Afia will be with me, particularly doing the workshops on Saturday and doing the African Center School work. It's so important, and I'm so excited about people around the nation grabbing hold of the idea that we're going to control the narrative. When people think of King or see the image of Martin Luther King, they don't think of him as a drum major for justice. That's how he said he wanted to be remembered. He's more remembered as a Prince of Peace and other things that his image has been manipulated to represent. But we want, when that $20 bill, when that Tubman Jackson $20 bill hits the street, we want that image to stimulate in us our healing capacities and a desire and a will, our building capacities and a desire and a will, and our warrior capacities and a desire and a will. And in order to do that, then we're going to need to make sure that we learn and tell throughout our families and throughout our community this Harriet Tubman warrior healer builder story. And then when we want to go beyond the veil to learn how can we develop into that kind of warrior healer builder and the skill set that's necessary, then that's what we also then do on Saturday. So I'm just excited about it. It's a labor of love.
I'm inviting my friends. This will go up on my website, on my Facebook page, so that people can hear my melodious voice and how important I think this is to us as a people. I want to ask you one last question before we close out this evening. You mentioned a term that I have struggled with, not necessarily, it's not the proper term, that I've worked with for the past 30 years, and that is African-centered education. Could you just tell us why in this post-racial era, I'm using quotes here, in this post-racial era, why would we even have a discussion about African-centered education?
One word, well, three: to heal alienation. Okay, to use a phrase by a great African psychologist, Amos A. Wilson, we're alienated to serve aliens. So the educational process that we go through, even if we excel, and especially if we excel, is designed to alienate us from our people, from our culture, from our way, to turn all of us into universal black orphans. Okay, so that we only operate on the set as a backdrop for the other characters in the world. And so African-centered education puts us at the center, all right, so that we begin to see the world from our perspective based on our needs. Education is not something that's in a book or in a curriculum or somebody on high. Education is what a people decide is needed, the skills and the knowledge that's needed to serve those people's greatest interests. If we're on an island someplace and there's only 100 of us and we need somebody to know how to fish, you know, and somebody figures it out, then guess what? We're going to have a fishing school. Okay, because we're going to teach other people how to fish. Okay, if it's required to build boats to fish more, go further, then we're going to have a how do you make boat school. Okay, and then so education is to lift us. And so in order for education to lift us, then it has to be education that's centered in our reality, in our past, and for our future. And that's why we need African-centered education.
Excellent. Well, listen, it's been, as somebody used to say in DC, it's been a plum-pleasing pleasure having this dialogue with you. There's a difference between dialogue and discussion. Discussion is a term has to do with ripping apart. Dialogue occurs when you two people create something that neither one could create by themselves. Through interaction. Well, this is Baba Kojo Owusu signing off, saying, remember that a book does not have to influence everyone to be influential, and a writer only begins a book. The reader finishes.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.